Ambassador Lodi, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
How serious is this in the view of your government? And I don't just mean politically for your government, but regionally, and what might it do given the tension between your two nations?
Christian, let's first get the facts straight. How was this crisis triggered? It was triggered by an illegal annexation by the Indian government of the state of Jammu and Kashmir, which is an internationally recognized dispute. In fact, where I sit at the United Nations, it is a dispute that is firmly on the UN Security Council agenda because there are a series of UN Security Council resolutions that have called on India to allow the people of Jammu and Kashmir to freely determine their destiny through a plebiscite. So the crisis is triggered by an illegal and an illegitimate action by India. And let's just get the rest of the facts straight. The facts are that there is a blanket curfew in occupied Jammu and Kashmir. People there are locked up. It's called a lockdown, which has entered its fourth day. But actually, this has been a prolonged lockdown. These people have been deprived of their liberty for 70 years or more. Now they're going to be deprived of their identity because the action by the Indian government, what does it actually do? What it does is to also allow the Indian government to bring about demographic changes in Jammu and Kashmir, and therefore to really threaten the identity of the Kashmiri people. As far as my government is concerned and my Prime Minister and my country is concerned, we reject this move. We heard what Prime Minister Modi said just a few hours ago, and it was a dishonest, deceitful, and disingenuous justification of their action, which has no basis in law, and it certainly flouts, in flagrant violation, Security Council resolution.
Okay, so Ambassador, let me ask you then. Let me ask you, because those are very, very, tough words that you're using. You are the UN ambassador. You've just reminded us all how this is enshrined in international law, given the dispute that should be resolved according to the international community. So what is the United Nations and the Security Council going to do about this? Are they taking it up?
Well, I have been in meetings with top UN officials, and I have reminded them of their responsibility. Pakistan is going to go to the Security Council. It is going to remind the Security Council and its members, indeed all of the United Nations, of its responsibility. And what is that responsibility? That responsibility is to ensure, and let me cite here, Christian, for your viewers, an important resolution. It's called Resolution 38 of the Security Council. And the paragraph 2 of that resolution says, a country does not have the right to materially change the situation in Jammu and Kashmir. And that's precisely what the Indian government has done. So my country wants a peaceful settlement of this issue. We've always called for a negotiated settlement, which is in accordance with Security Council resolutions and in accordance with the wishes of the Kashmiri people. Let's not forget, the issue is about people. It's about a people who have been deprived of their right to live the way they want to be governed the way they want to. And today, even pro-Indian politicians in Jammu and Kashmir have been locked up. So if Prime Minister Narendra Modi says that this is in the interest of the Jammu and Kashmir people, the question he has to answer is, why do you have to lock up the entire state of Jammu and Kashmir? You know why? Because no Kashmiri will accept what the Indian government has done.
So
we don't accept what the Indian government has done. We reject it, and we'll go to the council, and we'll make all these points at the council, and we will insist that the council implement its own resolutions. Because I think the choice right now is, do we want to live in a rules-based world where international law is supreme, or do we want to live in a world which is ruled by the law of the jungle? And this is what India has done. It has flouted international law, and it has flouted Security Council resolutions.
You mentioned lockdown and lock up. I mean, we've heard reports that opposition politicians in Jammu Kashmir have been arrested. And as you say, landlines are down, the internet is down, mobile phone is down. Very, very difficult to get an idea of exactly what's happening on the ground there. But I do want to ask you, because the whole world knows that this piece of disputed land has been the cause of 3 wars between your nations. And today, your army chief, the Pakistani army chief, said that the country would do all that's necessary, go to any extent to support Kashmiris. And then the foreign minister said that Pakistan is not looking to respond militarily. So can I hear it from you? Do you think that there's going to be a military solution to this, or do you still have diplomatic intentions?
No, I mean, we have said very clearly that all diplomatic and political options are on the table. Pakistan has no interest and no desire to escalate the situation. This is an escalation that was triggered by an illegal and illegitimate act, and we would like the international community now to stand up for principle, for law, for justice, and to address the plight of the Kashmiri people. As I keep saying, Christian, this is about people in that state, in an occupied state, in an occupation that has been brutal. India has moved additional troops into occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Why? Obviously, to suppress the voice of the Kashmiri people. But one day, the curfew will have to end. One day, these restrictions will have to go. And then the Indian government will hear the voice of the Kashmiri people, and that voice will be to get out of Kashmir, to leave Kashmir, and to reverse this illegal annexation.
Well, that's also, gives rise to all sorts of worries, because if they do protest, as most people believe they will, and some have suggested they will, if and when this curfew is raised, that also could trigger a response. So let me ask you, because obviously President Trump has met Prime Minister Modi of India several times, and he also just hosted Prime Minister Imran Khan, your Prime Minister, at the White House. And when they were talking, President Trump said that Prime Minister Modi had mentioned maybe he, mediating in this. Let me just play what President Trump said. We don't have that soundbite. Okay. But he did actually say that that he would try to resolve it if indeed he was asked to do so. So my question to you is, what is the Prime Minister, Imran Khan's, reaction to an offer by President Trump? Is it a real offer? Would you welcome that?
Well, Prime Minister Imran Khan has already tweeted, in fact, immediately after this crisis began with the Indian action, that it is time that President Trump now makes good on this offer, that he welcomes this offer, and Pakistan has always been open to mediation. Look, Pakistan has stood for peace. Pakistan has stood for a negotiated settlement. We would like to address the plight of the Kashmiri people, and we don't think that the plight of the Kashmiri people is addressed by these unilateral measures where they are locked up, where everything is taken away from them, and then the argument is made that this is being done in their interest. I think that is laughable, it's ridiculous, it's absurd, and it would really be laughable if it wasn't such a serious matter. But the Indian narrative right now and their justification is really, it just doesn't wash. The people of Kashmir want to run their own life in a way that is acceptable to them, and that is what Security Council resolutions call for. So this ultimately is a question of principle, of law, of morality and justice for a people who for 70 years have lived in darkness.
Why do you think, I mean, you've been following this very closely, you've been a diplomat for your country for many, many years. Why do you think this move has happened now? There are some who believe that it's one of the first, it's like fulfilling a campaign promise. That's what Prime Minister Modi said he'd do the first time around. He said he'd bring an economic miracle to India, and he'd, take back Kashmir. Why do you think he's doing this now?
Well, I think, Christian, timing is something that only the Indian government can answer for you. But certainly, my Prime Minister, in an address that he made to Parliament, made it very clear that he saw, and we do see this action by the Indian government to be very much part of the BJP's ideology under Prime Minister Modi, which is to impose Hindu rule over all of India and to take away whatever dimensions of secularism that ever existed in India. And in Jammu and Kashmir, this is very much part of an ideology which seeks to turn a Muslim majority state into one where Kashmiris are turned into a minority ultimately because of the demographic changes that India wants to bring in Jammu and Kashmir. So I think it is being determined by an ideology which is fascist, which is racist, and which rests on the supremacy of one faith over others. And this is most unfortunate. We again condemn this, and we ask that India return to the negotiating table, that it rescinds these steps, because it will find that there will not be a single Kashmiri that will ever accept what India has done.
And obviously, as I've said, and I'll say it again, we've tried to get reaction to this so that we can ask the Indian officials precisely why they're doing this right now. And we'll continue to try to get their response to this really important move. But of course, India over many years has accused Pakistan of destabilizing moves, has accused Pakistan of fueling terrorism, has accused, Kashmir of being used as a hotbed for Pakistani activity in that regard. And now the Indian Defense Minister says that the new status, that they're now calling it a new status, would end the discrimination faced by the people of Kashmir over the past 70 years. How do you answer their accusations to your government?
Well, I think they need to first answer to themselves what they have done to Jammu and Kashmir. Why has there been resistance for 70 years? Why has there been a freedom struggle? I mean, they focus on one aspect of what has been happening in Jammu and Kashmir. But the question that they have to answer is, why is it that they have failed to win Kashmiri hearts and minds? And the reason for that is very simple. No nation, no people, no one accepts foreign occupation. And that is how every Kashmiri sees India's presence. They have over 500,000 troops in Jammu and Kashmir. Why? What are they doing there? And why can't they, through 500,000 plus troops, ensure security in Jammu and Kashmir? So I think these disingenuous ways of trying to change the subject, change the narrative, is not going to work. What has happened in Jammu and Kashmir is there for the whole world to see. India has acted in blatant violation of law, and India needs to return not just to the negotiating table with Pakistan and to talk about a peaceful settlement, which is based on Security Council resolutions. India needs to also come to the Security Council and answer why it has failed to implement Security Council resolutions which call for a free and open plebiscite for the people of Kashmir.
Talking about a free and open plebiscite for Kashmir, let's just move on to Afghanistan, which is on your other border, and where, as you know, the Taliban is engaged in so-called peace talks with the United States and have said that, potentially in 2 weeks or a couple of weeks, they might be ready to announce the parameters of a peace deal. This is incredibly important for the region, for your government, for the government of Afghanistan, for the United States, which has troops there. What is the status of those talks as far as you know? And does this move complicate it in any way at all?
Let me take the second half of your question first, Christiane. Of course, the two issues are completely distinct, separate. One has nothing to do with the other. Kashmir is different, Afghanistan is different. But at the same time, India's move and the timing of this move raises the question whether it has done this also to destabilize the promising peace process in Afghanistan, because it is obviously not in India's interest to see peace return to Afghanistan. So that is a question for them to answer, why they have moved at a time when clearly such a move has a destabilizing impact on the entire region, because the region is on edge right now. The Kashmiri people are on edge. As for the peace talks in Afghanistan, we of course have always maintained for the last 18, 19 years that the only path to peace in Afghanistan was through a negotiated settlement. And we are pleased to see that these talks are progressing extremely well. And of course, if there's a country that has more to benefit from peace in Afghanistan other than Afghanistan itself, it is Pakistan. So we welcome this, and we hope that this will continue to make the progress so that we see peace, at least on the western side of our border. But India needs to answer this question, why now?
Ambassador Maliha Lodi, thank you very much. And we still hope to ask the Indian government, why now?